What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin, JON.
And we have yet another album review for you. Another one that was definitely on our radar because we went over this band's last one. And, well, we would have saw them in MDF, but someone else was playing at the same time. And, I mean, you know, that just kind of tends to happen there. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Spectral Wound, Songs of Blood and Mire. This also comes out on the 23rd of August on Profound Lore Records. This band formed in 2015 in Quebec. This is their fourth album overall, and as I said, we went over their last album, A Diabolical Thirst. I absolutely loved it. I believe it was a year-ender for me that year. And again, we missed this band, but we did see Spectral Voice, so we did see a band with Spectral in it.
Yep.
So that doesn't really mean anything because they're completely different bands. Well, technically, we didn't really see Spectral Voice either because they turned off all the lights for their performance. So, yeah, that's whatever.
Yeah, when I finally get to posting that video, I swear to God, they're there.
And for those that don't know about this band, straight up black metal, I would say, like, very much in line with, like, second wave black metal. But this one, honestly, was a little bit different. Like, Diabolical Thirst was sinister, dark, vicious, had some absolutely nasty, mean-spirited vibes to it and riffs to match. This one, and it kind of like hit immediately, just has, I don't know, like a different vibe to it. Like, it is still cold, it's still icy. The production on it is very much in line with, like, you know, raw black metal, except I would say this is pretty well mixed. Like, everything's separated well. The guitar tone drones like a static hiss. The frontman just shrieks like some demonic hell creature throughout the entire album. The drums are frequently blasting, but when you listen to the melodies themselves, to the guitar work, there's, I don't know, like a little bit of brightness to this.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's, don't get me wrong, it's still icy and cold. It's in Quebec. How can it not be? But at the same time, a lot of the melodies chosen and or the frequent harmonies just sounded bright. It sounds like a very, very cold, frigid, sunny morning. And if you live in the north or the northwest or the Midwest like we do, you kind of understand what that means.
Yeah, I would describe this as melodic but raw. Like, it still sounds vicious and dark, but again, when you kind of like peel back the veneer of raw black metal evilness, you start hearing melodies that, honestly, they kind of remind me a little bit of like punk and goth rock. Like the opening track, Fevers and Suffering, it stomps in with like a very punky riff, and 100%. As the melodies start coming in, it's like, man, that's just sort of like a somber, kind of bleak sounding, almost goth rock hook, and the frequent use of tremolo harmonies. You know, this band, I would say, is like very minimalist in terms of their approach. Like, there's just kind of a few things that they really do, but they employ them well, they arrange them well in their songs, and they have great impact. And one of the things that I think has like a huge impact on this album are the frequent tremolo harmonies. They are legit catchy as hell.
And everywhere. There's not a single song on this album that doesn't employ some sort of crazy, catchy tremolo harmony. Songs like The Horn Marauding actually have just a giant harmonic jam. Like, there's a whole probably 2-3 minute section where it's just this harmony that keeps building and building and building on itself, and it makes it really catchy. The same can be said for A Coin Upon the Tongue, albeit A Coin Upon the Tongue is a bit darker. There's a lot of lower register tremolos in there, which is something that I really enjoy.
But towards the end of that song, it gets, again, like very bright and melodic. Like, it opens up very snarly and actually very riffy. Like, there's some like legit like catchy riffs on there, almost some like, you know, Celtic Frost vibes, albeit played quite a bit faster. But as the song goes on, it breaks into these really, you know, heavy but catchy tremolo hooks and just the harmonies again. And again, it feels very like lush but cold. It's a very weird vibe on this album. And then it goes further into like almost like blackened heavy metal. Like, there's like classic heavy metal harmonies, albeit they are played as a tremolo rather than like, you know, individually picking the harmonies.
Which happens again in the last song, 12 Moons in Hell. But to me, it sounded almost more like a Spirit Adrift song than it did a Spectral Wound song. And that's the kind of like rock atmosphere that a lot of this has.
Yeah, like when they do get away from the tremolo, which is very sparingly. Like no, this band has one particular thing that they like to do, at least with the guitars. Like, it does craft really good melodies and really good hooks, but they love the tremolo. And I mean, it's black metal. They probably should. But at the end of 12 Moons in Hell, you hear them, like, you know, play the chords or notes individually without doing, like, the tremolo picking. And the melody completely changes in terms of the vibe. It becomes, like, again, like, almost like folky, kind of classic heavy metal. Like, you could kind of pull that from, like, a darker Iron Maiden song.
Yeah.
And after hearing that, that definitely made me, like, you know, think about some of the other songs in here just in terms of, like, their approach. Like, if you took off, again, that black metal veneer across this entire album, you would have a lot of, like, I don't know, like, very classic heavy metal songs, punk songs, goth rock songs. And you would still have just flat out catchy hooks. Like, these are just catchy rock hooks covered in corpse paint. A big standout to me, especially in terms of just how catchy the song was the song Aristocratic Suicidal Black Metal, which I think that song title is very interesting. I just got the image of, like, two very well-dressed gentlemen talking in corpse paint to one another, and it's, I don't know, like, you just hear stuff like, good-looking corpse paint today, Billingson. It's like, thank you, sir, but I am a mighty bit depressed today. I think I might end it all. Oh, nonsense!
Poppycock.
Balderdash. I say that's a bunch of tomfoolery.
Never mind, my well-dressed friend. Off to the bridge I go, to plummet into the icy cold waters.
Well, they will cry poser at your funeral. But all jokes aside, that song is ridiculously catchy. It has, like, this kind of broken down, like, punk riff to it. Like, it's almost kind of in the vein of Midnight, albeit, like, you know, way more cold and sinister and less likely to, like, you know, overturn a table and set it on fire because they're raging drunk. It's got, like, big major chord hooks in it. And again, this was one of those songs where you kind of strip off, like, a bit of that black metal, you know, aesthetic to it. You get, like, a good kind of just catchy punk song. That isn't to say this album doesn't have, like, you know, a lot of the tropes of black metal that I love. Like, again, tons of blast beats on here. It feels evil. Like, there's a second wave presentation to all of this. Like, I mean, you look at the artwork, you know, the vibe of the band, like, it's all there. But when it comes down the sound, you start noticing these little nuances. Like, there's just more to it than, say, like, you know, like classic second wave black metal. Like, there's just a little bit more melody to it.
I think a lot of it comes in the vocal presentation too. I think without the that is constantly present, I think it would make it sound maybe like a black and roll kind of vibe. I think that would be more to say than icy cold black metal if you stripped away that vocal presentation.
Like, it does have its more heavy, sinister moments. I mean, a big standout for me was Less and Less Human, O Savage Spirit. The tremolos are a little bit more low register. They sound more sinister. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Marduk a lot. Fast, stampeding, double-time drums that go into blast beats. You know, it just has, like, the vibe of just, you know, evil and darkness. But that isn't, like, the overall sort of vibe on this entire album. And I kind of like that. Like, this band is still very minimalist just in terms of, like, all the stuff they do. Like, there's not a lot of elements to this, but it's how they're arranged and how they're played. They do generate something that kind of stands out, and the thing that really stands out is the melody. There's not a lot of, like, solos. In fact, I think the only solo that I picked out on here was A Coin Upon the Tongue. You know, tons of lead harmonies and dissonant atmosphere, but again, like, there's not a lot of, like, extra flashy play. Like, there's some really interesting transitions. I love the transitions on a horn resounding towards the middle of the song. You get some cool turnovers into this really catchy tremolo harmony. Imagine me saying that again. And they do like to break down the song towards the end and kind of open it up, you know, play a slower groove, because a lot of this, again, is just laying on the blast beats. It does kind of make the song sound a little bit more epic or vibrant or, again, bright. All these words I generally don't use to describe black metal. But at the same time, like, I feel like I could play this on a sunny, nice day and it not being, like, you know, -10 outside, and it would still be very fitting. Now, I did have, like, some minor complaints. I do kind of miss the riffiness that was on A Diabolical Thirst. Like, there's a few songs in there where, like, dude, that riff is just killer. And I don't get that a lot here because a lot of this is heavy strumming, tremolo. Not that that's a bad thing. It does a really good job at it. It builds a lot of atmosphere, a lot of great melodies. But I like my black metal a little bit more on the riffy side, and I did kind of miss that. And there were a couple of moments on here where if they just kind of like, you know, broke down one of those tremolos and just kind of played it differently, I think that, you know, the song might have popped a little bit more or just had like a more of a standout moment. A Coin Upon the Tongue actually has like a good chuggy riff moment. It's probably one of the few on here. And it was such a welcome break that, you know, I was like, oh man, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Stay on that. Naturally, they went back to the tremolo, but still, I thought it was really cool. So there's just a couple of moments on here where I think they could break out of the like heavy droning tremolos just for a bit to, you know, just kind of explore like a different dynamic.
I'm in the pretty much the same boat about that gripe. Me getting into black metal, I like my black metal, first of all, to be pretty goddamn evil. And while this is still evil, at least in a vocal perspective, it's not necessarily as evil sounding as I think it could have been. I don't know, you know, you want to go in a new direction or try something new, great. And I do miss a lot of the riffs. I just have to say that. Like, getting into black metal, I do find that I like riffier black metal, and this was not necessarily that, albeit it is still cold and dissonant, and I like that. It was missing some things that I've come to love recently.
Yeah, I think it just could have used, like, again, like a few more, I mean, like, breakdown-ish moments. Like, not like full-on breakdowns, but something to break up the stampede, because this album is just dense. It is clustered with, again, that droning tremolo, which the guitars being very out front and very cold and very dry sounding. Like, it creates this sort of like static hiss that is surprisingly melodic and actually, you know, very tuneful. But at the same time, like a couple of like more groovy pockets, or just, again, like some different riff play on there, because I feel like I got a little bit of that on the last album. It probably would have opened this up a little bit more, but honestly, like across the board, I really enjoyed this. Like, this is just a good, I don't know, dark but bright listen. Like, I have so many confused emotions about this because it's very melodic. It's dark and evil, but yet, like, all of the music made me feel, like, good and kind of happy. I don't know. That may be something wrong with my wiring. Maybe it's not the band. Maybe I'm just broken. I don't know. We're not going to rule it out. Either way, I'm going to give this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. This was a solid listen. Lots of second wave worship, but that's like kind of surface level. There's a lot more going on underneath it. And again, more melodic this time. The frequent use of tremolo harmonies, well, I mean, they were on like every single track, and I mean, tremolos are just, they're everywhere. They're the bulk of this album. They are still used really effectively. The melodies are, again, like somber and bright. There's a good use of like major chords in songs too, which again, that's just something you don't think about in black metal at all. Occasional moments where they kind of step outside and do like some punkier riffs, or, you know, like some kind of like heavy metal tinged tremolos, because, you know, tremolos. But honestly, it all works pretty damn well. And the fact, again, that's very minimalist, but yet they generate these very huge songs with lots of cool movements in them. And again, melodies that really do stick in your head. I think this is a pretty awesome album. If you're a big fan of, God, man, I would say like early Satyricon. There's definitely some Marduk moments on here. Farsot, which is a black metal band that we went over not too long ago.
I did like Farsot.
Taki. I don't know how to say his name. Either way, kind of similar to that. Check this out. I think it's a really solid listen.
I'm going to go ahead and give this 3.5 stars. This is all part of my journey. Again, black metal has been very recent for me, and I've latched onto a bunch of things that I like and a bunch of things I don't like, and this somehow kind of sits in the middle. It's not as dark as I would like it to be. It's not as evil sounding as I would like it to be, again, outside of the vocals. It's missing riffs. As I've started to latch onto black metal, of course, I've started to latch onto things like riffs, and this doesn't have a lot of that. And while I appreciate things like tremolos and definite dissonance and big atmosphere and whatnot, like, I don't think it quite grabbed me as much as I think it would have had it had the elements in it that I have come to love in black metal. Like, I'm still getting very used to this whole thing. That's not to say this is bad. This is executed very well. The drummer is a madman. I feel, again, tired for him. I do like the fact that they even isolate his drums sometimes. We didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
In the beginning of Fevers and Sufferings, there's a lot of moments where they isolate the drums out and let him kind of tool around a little bit and play some turnovers and just something to spice it up a little bit. I will state that it does get rather monotonous at times because a lot of the songs tend to flow the same way. It's either blasty or it's punky, and there seems to be no deviation from those two things. So while I didn't necessarily get into that, I will still say that it was entertaining and I did still enjoy it. I just would have enjoyed it more had it had things like riffs. Either way, check out the bands that Nick listed, because I am not a giant fan or into those bands either, so I would just say listen to Nick as far as his recommendations are concerned, but definitely check the record out. So yeah.
I'd say Magua too. Magua's kind of close
There
to
you
this
go.
too. So yeah, one more band that's kind of similar. But yeah, check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, both old and new. The old ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats, too. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
As always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. It seems that we have no shortage of content these days to bring you album reviews, discography rankings, discussion topics, states of metal, is it metal, is it not metal? There's always something going on here, and really, as entertaining as it is for us, we do it for you guys. We appreciate all of our subscribers, our family, our friends, everyone that has supported us along the way into making this channel a whole hell of a lot bigger than I ever thought it would be. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule, and tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you because of all your rulage, and we will catch you later.